Thanks for joining this afternoon. We are going to go through our royalty statements. So this webinar is focused on that topic, just kind of your royalty statements, the payment cycle. Those are the questions that we'll be answering. Before we hop in, just a couple of quick things. You'll see at the bottom, this is a Zoom webinar, so you'll see at the bottom, there's chat and there's Q&A. If you have questions, please drop them in the Q&A box, and my colleague Maurice and I will hit those questions as they come in. We'll reserve the chat for our team in the background who's going to post some helpful links to resources and things like that. So again, if you've got questions, drop them in the Q&A. We'll be hitting all the questions that you have about your royalty statement and our payment cycle and all those things. So I am going to share my screen. We'll go through a couple of introductory slides, and then I'll bring my colleague Maurice out to go through the statement. So a couple of important things to really understand when we're talking about our royalty distribution is just the timeline and some of the things to know that happen within that timeline. So we do have a monthly accounting cycle. So that means that the MLC does pay monthly, but because it is a 75-day cycle. So basically you're getting paid 75 days after the end of the month when activity took place. That's pretty confusing. So, and we can drop this link in the chat. We do have a section on our website that explains the royalty timeline and when you'll be getting paid. But essentially, if the usage happened in January, that means you got paid for that usage in April. That's 75 days after the usage happened. But you can see that we do pay out monthly. So it's important to understand those timelines as it relates to what and when you're getting paid. Another important thing to note when we're talking about the timeline is this thing we call the snapshot. So the MLC takes a snapshot of the MLC's works database for a given month. This happens on day 10 of the MLC 75-day cycle. So essentially, if like the last day of January is the 31st, so that means that 10 days after, on February 10th, we'll take that snapshot, and that is basically snapshot we'll use for January, and so on and so forth. So that's important, because if your works data isn't in the database by the time that snapshot is taken, then you probably won't see royalties for that usage period until the next distribution. So I know it's a little bit complicated to understand. So if you've got more questions about the snapshot, the support team can help you out and explain that a little bit more. But that is an important date to know. And then another important day to have in mind is kind of day 70 of the cycle. The reason that's important is because that's the last day to update any of your payment and tax information. You'll need to put your payment and tax information in one time, but if there is something that changes, perhaps you switched banks or something, you do need to change it 5 days in advance of when we pay you. We always have the royalty payment date available on our website. Again, we'll drop that link in the chat, but those are just some high-level things to know about our royalty distribution schedule and timeline. Again, we know that this can be a lot to process and understand. So our support team is available to help you. We're available Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can call us, you can reach out to us with our Contact Us form. We have a chat in the portal, whatever is your preferred method of reaching out to us, we're available. We do have some payment specialists who specialize in this area, and we'll be able to kind of walk you through all of your questions, whether that's your royalty statement and what's in there, to like, how does this work? So reach out if you have any questions. We definitely want to help you. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to bring out my colleague, Maurice Russell, and he will walk you through our royalty statement.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to take a few minutes to just walk you through a royalty statement. When you download your statement, you actually have two options. You can do the royalty detail, which is the most granular, most detailed information you would need. And it's probably most appropriate for members who are using the royalty data to account to third parties. If you don't need that much data, we also have a much shorter summary form that has fewer fields. But today we're going to take a look at the royalty detail. And as I did mention before, it is fairly detailed. There are about 62 fields here. I'm going to highlight the fields that we get the most frequently asked questions about. When you look at your statement, you will see a number of fields, but let's start off with the fields that refer to you as a member. And that starts with your member MLC number, your name, your member IPI, interested party identifier number, and a member ISNI, which is another unique identifier, if those are available. We also have information fields for other entities that are associated with your member, if you have them, like the payee, the similar 4 fields. If you have an administrator on Works, that information would be here. And then lastly, the original publisher, which is the publisher where the rights originated, would be here. Moving on. The usage period start and end dates. This is important for identifying the specific periods that pertain to a given transaction. And it's important for reasons that I'll get back to in a second. Moving on, we get into information about the DSP that is reporting royalties to us. It starts with the unique identifier for the DSP's name, and DSP stands for Digital Service Provider. So DSPs are companies like Spotify, Apple, Amazon, etc. If that DSP has a specific consumer offering where the rate would be different, that would be indicated here, the name of that consumer offering. You can see some examples, like it's the premium or the bundled version or the family plan or the student plan. That would be here. Then we have storefront. If the DSP's commercial name is different than their company name, that would be here. So Spotify's storefront is the same as its company name, but there are others that might be different. And we move on to the use type. There are 2 use types that we would be accounting royalties to for. One is streaming and the other is digital download. I would say that streaming is the primary format that you would be receiving royalties on through the MLC. Moving on to the member song identifier. If you have a unique identifier that you submit with your song registrations, that will reappear here in your royalty statement, and that will help you tie back to your system when you receive your statement. Moving on. The DSP track ID is important. That is the specific unique identifier for the track that is being reported on, where the DSP ID corresponds with the actual usage that's being accounted to you. It's more granular than the ISRC code, which is a unique identifier for the recording. The DSP track ID would be specific instances at the product level of a track. Moving on. Processing type is going to either be regular or reprocessing. Regular means that the royalties were generated in the period. Reprocessing refers to royalties that are being paid to you for prior periods. That's why the 2 usage period fields that I mentioned earlier are important, because they will help you identify, in the case of reprocessing, the specific period that that reprocessed royalty pertains to. So reprocessed royalties could be paid to you because we subsequently matched a recording to a work that you control after the initial usage period, or we identified a share of a work that was not fully claimed at the time that of the initial distribution. It also could pertain to royalties that are released from a royalty hold. It could also apply to adjustments of prior period royalties. And in the event that that's the case, the correction indicator would also be populated. So the processing type would be reprocessing, and the correction indicator would be populated with either correction, which means the amount is a positive amount, or a reversal, which means that it is a debit amount. Moving on, we get into the royalty calculation information. We start with the number of usages, which is, in the case of streams, the number of plays. In the case of downloads, it would be the number of downloads. That number can be adjusted for tracks that are longer than 5 minutes. So that's why the long track adjusted usages is here. And then we have the effective royalty rate, the effective per play rate at the song level. Then we have it at the share level. And then we have the royalty that's calculated, that's payable for that particular track times the number of usages that are indicated here. The next column is late fee amounts. If we received usage reporting from a DSP after it was due, it would accrue late fees, and those would be passed on to you. If there is interest that pertains to the usage line, that would appear here. And lastly, the total amount for the distribution at the track level would be here, and that would include the amount of royalties that you earned in the distribution, plus late fees, plus interest. I'm going to stop my screen share and rejoin you, Lindsay.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and hop into the Q&A now. So the first question is, why are some of the statements showing without where the payment came from?
I would need more information for that. There should be a DSP populated in the DSP fields that I just referred to earlier. You may want to contact support to provide the specific details.
Cool. Thanks. How do I download a statement showing the amount being paid for the period covered? So in the portal, and basically in the portal, when you click on statements module on the left-hand side, you'll see it under royalties. You can filter by distribution period. So you can kind of filter out what you're looking for that particular distribution period. So what you just got paid, which will be, which you can, if you're wondering like more information, you can kind of cross-reference that, but you'll be able to toggle by that. You can also filter by DSP if you want to break it down more, but that's how you do that in the portal. Okay. Elizabeth, I would simply like to have a straightforward royalty statement, basic as most other statements. How do I get this accomplished?
Well, I think basic is relative. This is normal for some, for larger companies. It may be a bit much for others. But as I pointed out, when you download statements, you have two options. you could choose the summary statement, which has many fewer fields than the detail that I just walked through, and that might be more appropriate for you. So if you haven't tried that, I recommend that you download the summary statement and see if that works better for you.
Okay. Next question, are you receiving payments from other countries? So the MLC it's US only, so it's digital audio mechanicals usage within the US. So we aren't collecting those same royalties for anywhere outside of that. We have a question from LinkedIn from Carrie. Actually, I think, Carrie, I'm in the process of responding to your email, but if DistroKid is my distribution, would I receive any royalties from the MLC? So if this is the person, I'm pretty sure I'm emailing back. Well, regardless, if DistroKid, they're a distributor, they do not collect digital audio mechanicals on your behalf because they don't currently offer any publishing administration. So if you're a member of the MLC and your works are registered, then, and you're the rights holder, then you will be the ones collecting the digital audio mechanicals from the MLC. Now, DistroKid does have other revenue sources that you're collecting that the MLC does not collect, like sales, for example. So it's not necessarily replacing what you're getting from DistroKid, but DistroKid is also not replacing the MLC, if that makes sense. So yeah. Anything to add to that, Maurice?
No, I think you got it.
All right, cool. Next question. HFA receives royalties from other countries for me. Will they pay me directly or send through the MLC?
The MLC only collects and distributes royalties that are generated by DSPs in the US. And I think you covered that a little earlier. Yeah.
This question is a follow-up from Stuart. I responded to him before. Just to cover off on this, Stuart asked earlier about, he receives a link. Basically, he's downloaded the statement on the portal. You do receive a link in an email. That link in the email gives you access to a TSV file. We're currently working on different file formats, but right now it is a TSV file. There are instructions on how to convert that file. I can actually drop them in the chat so everyone knows how to do that. But if you're having a hard time converting your file with even using those instructions, reach out to the support team. Someone can either walk you through it or go ahead and download your file for you and send it to you. Again, we are working on additional file types, such as at the moment what we have. But I will drop a link. Let me do that right now to the help article that kind of outlines how to open that statement. Okay. Sorry, So Gary asks, I tried to download a statement, but got a message that is being sent by email. Is that the normal way you send statements, i.e. by request, not automatically? Correct. So how the process works is we send an email letting you know that your statement's available in the portal. You can then log in and review it, download whatever information you need to download. But if you do download the statement from the portal, it will email you a link to that statement, and then you would convert the TSV file. So, but yes, it is by request. It's not going to automatically send to you. Okay. So a similar question to earlier, if you're a DIY and on CD Baby, DistroKid, or Reverb Nation, do you receive royalties from the MLC? So it kind of depends. Some of these services do offer publishing administration services. DistroKid, I just happen to know, is one that does not. But CD Baby has, for example, CD Baby has an offering called CD Baby Pro, and that is something that offers is their publishing administration. So if you are using like an aggregator, a distributor that does offer publishing administration, and you have agreed to enter into that relationship with that service, then they are doing that work on your behalf. So for example, if you're using CD Baby Pro, CD Baby Pro is likely registering your works and collecting on your behalf. They're acting as your administrator. If you're not in one of those relationships, then you can go ahead and sign up to become a member for the MLC and collect your digital audio mechanicals directly. So it just kind of depends on what the relationship is and if you've entered into an agreement of that kind. Maurice, anything to add to that?
Nope, you nailed it.
Cool. What methods of payment do you offer to non-USA folks? Sure, Amanda. You can do a wire, check. I'm not sure about ACH. I think that's something we can offer, but you can definitely do a wire or a check for sure. I think ACH should be fine as well. But if you want to reach out to support to confirm what your options are, they can walk you through exactly what we can offer there for non-US folks or US folks, and then also what the minimum thresholds are for each, because each payment option has a different minimum threshold that you would hit before we're able to pay you out. Okay. Maurice, do you want to take?
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of talking.
This is from Tony. Also, can you briefly discuss if someone is an administrator for a catalog, for a publishing catalog with ASCAP and their own stuff is self-published with BMI? I think first we need to make a distinction between the MLC and the ASCAP and BMI and performance rights organizations in general. We handle mechanical licensing, so the performing rights world is sort of a separate thing. What really matters in this instance is for a given work, do you have the right to administer the mechanicals or not? And if you do, you can register with the MLC as a self-administered publisher. If you don't, and you've assigned those rights to a third party, then that party would be collecting on your behalf and then paying you directly. Anything to add to that, Lindsay?
No, that was good.
Let's go to Stuart. Stuart, is there a reason why a DSP wouldn't report plays we know were streamed in a certain period and we know were in the database in the proper snapshot period? Is this a common, easily solved problem? I would need more information to understand what you're referring to. I think you should contact our support team with that.
Okay.
Should we move on to Bishop? What is required to amend a writer's share amount on a work, and how long does this process usually take to amend? I'll let you start.
Sorry. So first, I think one thing that's important to understand is that for the MLC and digital audio mechanicals, it's actually the publisher share as opposed to the writer share. I think at PROs, there's a writer share and a publisher share, but in mechanicals, it's all about the publisher share. So if you are a self-administered songwriter and you own your publishing, then you're putting in what your ownership, because you own that publishing. But if you're like a published songwriter, maybe you're with Sony, whoever, Warner Chappell, whoever, they're the ones doing the administrative work and they'll put in the publisher share and then pay you. So, but in terms of amending the publisher share amount on a work, so what would happen there is we would probably need some sort of, I should just let Maurice talk about this because this is his world. But if we're looking for like a relinquishment saying, hey, that publisher is claiming too many shares and I should have this, they should have this, then we would need to kind of verify the splits. But I'm going to let Maurice talk about what we needed because this is really his area of
Yeah,
expertise.
if you're trying to register the work and the share is not available to you because it's being claimed by a third party, you won't be able to make that registration, and you'll need to contact us to let us know what your share claim is, and then we will begin the process of reaching out to the other publisher or publishers, and if necessary, we will commence a formal conflict procedure as is outlined in our dispute resolution policy.
Okay, and then it looks like we have one more question here. Does the MLC automatically split shares for the listed copyright holders from the publisher account? I'm not sure if I'm understanding the question. I don't know, Maurice, I don't know if you.
What I think you mean is, does the MLC pay you for just your share or not? And the answer is yes. When you register, you're registering for a specific share that you own or control, and it could be up to 100% of the song, depending on what your rights are, and that's what you'll be paid on, and that's what you'll see on your statement. So when you see, you look at the statement detail, you'll see your share percentage indicated. So if it's less than 100, it'll say what that share is, and your royalty will be prorated for that share. I think that answers it.
Great. Not seeing any more statement or payment related questions. We'll give it another minute to see if anything trickles in here last minute regarding statements or payments. But thank you all for joining. It looks like we may have gotten to all the questions. That's great. Again, thanks everyone for joining. We hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions that weren't answered and just need more information, feel free to reach out to our support team. They're always more than happy to help. Again, we're here Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time by phone, chat, or contact us. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your afternoon.
Bye, everybody.